What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is January 16th of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, and in today's video, I want to spend some time to focus in on another market that we've discussed about from time to time, and that is the cannabis sector. Over the last 24 to 48 hours, we have seen a pretty big bolster in cannabis stocks, some entering into double-digit territory, so we're going to be focusing in on this industry today and ask the question of whether or not it's finally found a bottom. All right, so we've got a lot of things to discuss, guys, but real quick, I just want to let you all know that this video is sponsored by eToro. Now, for those of you who may not know, eToro is a social trading platform that allows you to interact with other traders, and they recently launched their copy trader feature that allows you to copy trade on a variety of different traders, including myself, where you can see real time the performance of our individual portfolios, what we're currently holding at the moment, and along with that as well, a chart of our performance over time. And you just simply have to click the copy trading button that'll usually be in the top right. However, I'm on my account, and it'll let you trade real time alongside other traders on the platform. All right, so let's go ahead here. I want to go ahead and focus in on this interesting topic here, guys. So cannabis stocks have they were one of the best performers outside of cryptocurrencies back in 2017. It's an emerging sector. There's a lot of speculation, a lack of profitability, which is the perfect cocktail scenario for a momentum-based market. And you guys know I like to trade these markets. I've actually been following, for example, the cannabis sector since back as far as 2011. I think my first trade, I always have a funny story to tell. My first two trades were a split of a $900 investment where I put $450 in like a Chinese solar company, which actually turned a profit of like 30% in a month. And then I lost 30% on like a medical marijuana penny stock. It was my first lesson in trading in stocks back in the day. But it was speaking to my anticipation for investing in emerging markets and emerging tech sectors. And in this case, cannabis is an emerging industry. It's going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry over the next few years. The questions I have in the long term are what companies are going to come out on top? And also, for the companies that come out on top, are they going to be publicly traded right here, right now? And I think we're in a very similar scenario to what we saw during the dot-com era. A lot of these companies that we see right now are not going to be the leaders of the industry. Plain and simple. But at the end of the day, my time frame is not for the next 5 or 10 years. I'm trading companies for a multi-month basis, a yearly basis. I want to know if there's opportunity now and if it's available to me. We do have a lot of different cannabis stocks and ETFs to look at. If we take a look at the broad sector of the stocks that are publicly traded, we can see here, really over the last week, we've had a lot of good price action. We're taking a look right now at one of the major ETFs, the MJ ETF, that has a good basket of marijuana companies, many of which are based in Canada, but still might have operations here in the United States. But this ETF basically gives us easy exposure to that on U.S. markets. And you could access this on any brokerage platform like Robinhood or E-Trade. We can see here that we've gone from around a general bottom around $16 up to $19. We can also see on the THCX ETF a very similar scenario, again going down here from around $11.60 all the way up here to around $14. And then also we can't forget the YOLO ETF, very similar price action. So all these ETFs are very similar. They're broad measurements in a sense. They're broad exposure in this case, and they almost kind of serve as an index for the sector. So it's good to see this. And the question here is whether or not this is sustainable. Is this the time we're finally getting ready to buy into cannabis stocks? Because for those of you who have been active on the channel, you might know that I've been waiting for a full 80% correction across some of the major cannabis stocks. And we've gotten relatively close. We've gotten about a 65 to 70% correction across the industry, but we haven't gotten a full 80% correction on a lot of the stocks. And this has definitely come as a surprise. I didn't expect the industry to rebound so quickly. And it's really a question here whether or not, we need to get on the train here. And I think it's something that I don't want to rush into. And I'll explain that as we go throughout the video. So the first thing here, before we take a look at any more individual stocks, it's time to look at the broader indexes here. Now, there's a website here called newcannabisventures.com. It's a free website, and they've got a lot of different indexes here for cannabis companies to just get a general idea of where the industry is. Sadly, I don't know how to access this on TradingView, but again, it's a good chart here, right? You can generally get an idea here. You can change the time frame from daily, weekly, monthly. I keep it at the weekly. Gives a nice clean chart here. And you can see here, as we've talked about on the channel when it comes to crypto markets or these kind of parabolic markets where they have multiple kind of mid cycles in between, where we had the ramp up here, where there was a huge leap up here where the industry grew 3 to 4 times here, and then continued to accelerate going into the beginning of 2018, similar to crypto. The interesting thing you'll note is that as we corrected down, as we had a pretty stark correction across the industry here, notice how we came down here to this midpoint between the cycle. And it looks like we're pretty much resting exactly there around $400 points on the index, very similar to where we were back here during the summer of 2017. So nearly after more than 2 years, in this case, we're back down to this point. And this is exactly what you want to see as a sign for a bottom in a market. You want to see, roughly speaking, that across most indices, you've come back down to a point of rationale, right? You want to see that markets have corrected a lot of those ridiculous gains so that when the market continues to speculate again, when traders come flooding back in and people want to build positions in these companies, again, not so much whether or not the fundamentals are better, there's room for the stocks to grow. That's what you're looking for. Now, you probably won't want to expect the same returns you got from buying down here and selling all the way up here, but at least there's still room for some exponential moves in this space, which is what we're looking for. So I like seeing this. And right now I'm taking a look at the Canadian Cannabis LP Index. This is the one that I would recommend using, but you can also use the other Canadian Cannabis LP Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 indices. Because oh my God, I'm stuttering there. Canada is probably the best market to focus on because these Canadian companies really got the forefront of leading the way in cannabis markets on a wide scale, not only on a national scale in the sense of Canada, but a lot of them also own subsidiaries in U.S. companies that are doing legal operations throughout Colorado, throughout California, a lot of the states where it's currently legal. So they've kind of got a front runner advantage in that sense. And you can see here, if we take a look here, on the broader index, we see a very similar pattern here, bouncing off here on what was previous resistance around this range. We take a look at the Tier 2 index. We see a very similar case scenario where it made support, again, in that similar range. And on the third one here, take a look. Very similar. Again, we just don't have as much price history here. So we're pretty much making support down here at 100, which is where we were at back during the summer of 2017. So if you're taking a look at these indices, it would look very clear. I think it would be very clear to many people that, oh, yes, we have found a bottom in this case. Now, I will say, as we talked about, again, it's not it's so much a question here of fundamentals in this case. It's a question of what people are looking forward to. What are people investing towards? And that's the future of the cannabis market here. $40 billion by 2025. And this is a mixture of cannabis products for smoking, but also for edibles, for CBD products, which has been a big bolster in the health industry. There's all kinds of different avenues here, right? There's no doubt there's going to be a market for this, guys. And I say this as someone who I personally, I've smoked before in the past and stuff. I've tried CBD products, but for me, it's just not my thing. But I know that there's an industry for this, right? This is something that people are obviously, excited about. And definitely you're going to see a lot of people, if you take a look at the data in here, not only are we expecting a 5 times growth in revenue for this industry, which is something to look forward to because that's an industry that eventually will become likely profitable, but along with that, you have all these different branch offs. In this case, you have people, again, who are going to be switching from tobacco-based products, from alcohol-based products, and also from over-the-counter prescription medications. It's kind of a whole basket of different markets you're tackling. So I see the excitement for the industry in the long term, and I do like that we're getting a bottom in this index, right? The indexes that we took a look at. But the real question here is, can we be sure that this is time to go long on cannabis stocks, right? Well, I want to say that, quite frankly, I want to look on the weekly time frame. Weekly time frame is really what matters to me. Any time frame shorter than that, where I'm not seeing higher lows, I don't really care, right? I'm not going to jump in off of one simple week of good price action. For me, when it comes to trend reversal, I like to see a few different things. We've talked about here on the channel about how I go about macro trading. I look for example in the sense of a fundamental case. It could be, again, in speculation. In this case, people are finally starting to get hyped up. Maybe, for example, towards the 2020 election, maybe there's a chance here in the United States we could get federal legalization of cannabis here over the next few years into the next election. Who knows? That's something to look forward to. Not to mention as well just the general expansion and the crazy revenue growth that we've seen, and we'll take a look at that in just a bit for the cannabis sector. That's another fundamental reason to get excited. So we have the fundamentals in this case. The second one here is indicators, right? Are we seeing that across the broader industry? We can hop through some of the stocks here. We can see that all 3 of our indicators on the weekly time frame are showcasing a trend reversal. We can see this, for example, on Kronos Group. We can see it here on Hexo, for example. Cross just about to happen on the MACD. All 3 indicators looking good. Along with that as well, Organogram. Another thing, cross on the MACD. All of our indicators flashing good here. We can get CGC here. Cannabis Growth Corp has been showing these signs back over the last few weeks, right? So we can see that our indicators are flashing well. But the thing I want to see across more of the stocks in the sector here is higher lows. We've seen this on Cannabis Growth Corp. I think we've seen this as well on Kronos Group. We've been slowly but surely setting higher lows in this case. That's the sign of a market reversal. I would have liked to see things go down to 80%, but I won't stop myself from being able to build positions here if I feel there's value at these levels and that the momentum has kicked in. I only want to trade cannabis stocks if the momentum is there. Again, though, I'm not going to enter in on a position with one simple week of good price action because we've had that many times here. I mean, for example, if you were to discount this price here from June 10th of 2019 all the way over here, and we just had, for example, up to here on June 3rd of 2019. If I saw this candle here and I was just going off of 1 week of price action, it looked like a pretty good rebound, made up an entire week of losses, and it might be the reversal here for another turn up to the upside. But as we see, it tends to be that until we set a lot of consistent higher lows, it usually turns out that we roll over and lose out on those gains, right? I like the increase of volume, but I'm not sold on it just yet. I like to see follow through. And even if it means I don't get to pick the bottom, that's fine. I don't try to pick bottoms. I trade on trends. That's the key thing. And again, this isn't an insult to any of you who own cannabis companies, right? The only thing I would say critical of the cannabis sector is that the fundamentals haven't really improved. Revenue is growing across the board. If we take a look at Cannabis Growth Corp, right, you're seeing some growth in revenue here. I'd say actually CGC is actually one of the worst examples for the valuation that it has. I'm not seeing consistent revenue growth in this case. You can see it's a little bit jumpy. But in other companies, for example, like Hexo, again, I would say that the revenue on a few of these companies, sorry, Kronos is what I wanted to show. Revenue is growing nicely. Again, smaller than other companies like CGC, but it's at least growing at a steady rate. They're expanding their operations. But the financials are kind of jumpy throughout here, right? If you go down here, for example, to the net income in this case, right? You're losing millions of dollars on top of this revenue. There's a cost to this revenue. As they expand further, they're going further and further into debt. That's not a good sign here. Again, it's common with expanding industries, but I don't like seeing this. I want to see that the company could at least operate at a neutral level with its revenue. Because when you get to that point, when you're starting to push for profitability here, that's going to be a really big selling point for a lot of these companies. The revenue here, for example, on Kronos looks good, but their net income, for example, which they see these earnings per shares are like $1.77. That's not true. They're not making that much in the sense of their overall. That's not the conversion from their revenue. This is actually, from my understanding, likely from the shares they issued for the company once they got a big chunk of their company acquired by some of the major tobacco companies in the United States. So we can see the financials are still jumpy. So I wouldn't be, again, investing in any of these companies long term. It's like the dot-com era where we're trading on speculation that these companies might be able to be the big plays. And really, at the end of the day, it's price exposure or an asset exposure to the cannabis sector, which people get hyped about and people buy into off of FOMO. That's the general gist of it. So resolution here, right? I rambled on a bit today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it, but I want to go ahead and put my points in summary. Am I positioned in the cannabis sector right now? No, I'm not positioned. Should you be alarmed if you're positioned, seeing as I'm not positioned? No, guys, you guys got to go out there and determine your own decisions. And not to mention, if you're investing in this space for the long term or maybe a longer time frame, you might be well positioned. My general thesis, though, is that I want to see higher lows. I want to see that we're setting higher lows and higher highs in price to signal a clear trend reversal, to follow through with the indicators and follow through with the fundamental assumption that we might be seeing, yet again, more excitement for the cannabis sector growing in not only Canada and other countries, but also in the United States going into 2020, right? That's the general thesis. The pendulum we talked about of incentives swinging over to where legalization is favorable and that the business industry is going to start lobbying and pushing heavily to get it legalized, okay? So that's the general thesis, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you liked it, drop a like. And if you have any questions as well, feel free to leave them down in the comments down below. I'll try to get to them. Feel free as well to step in, guys, and provide your opinions and just get a discussion going. I always love this stuff, guys. I love hearing from you guys down below in the comments. But until the next video, I hope you guys are all having a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.